There are people out there that you think are actually poor, but they are not. And there are also people that you think are rich, but they are not actually rich. This is a video where we're going to be covering quite a lot about wealth, money, and how money works. Did you know that someone who is a millionaire could not actually afford something so basic? Now, let me explain how. So how money works is you get, say, someone who has 2 houses, and these 2 houses have to be paid for. I'm talking about fully paid for, because if it's on mortgage, we're not counting it here. I'll explain more later on. So let's say someone has 2 houses. These 2 houses are worth $1 million each. So that means this person's net worth is actually, but from these houses, this person is renting them out and he is getting $1,000 per month on each of these houses. Now, tell me, how is it possible that someone who is worth $2 million but is getting $1,000 for each house in rent be able to purchase a very expensive car? It's almost impossible, but this guy is a millionaire. Now, do you see how crazy that is? Oftentimes, we look at people who are flashy and we think these are the people with a lot of money, but that's not the reality. So here is a very, very good example. So worth $2 million, but only has a cash flow of $2,000 per month through rentals. So now, oftentimes when we see people with a lot of money, usually they come from a very, very small percentage of society. These are like football players. These are people who earn, let's say, $100,000 a week, you know? So these guys often portray a lifestyle which is, of course, desirable, because people are driving expensive cars, people are buying big houses and so on. So it's very, very easy for us to look at this and say, you know what? These guys are actually the example that we need to live by. But we are far away from that, because these are guys who have a lot of money, and pretty much this is money that we may never earn in our lifetime. So here, if you look at the type of cars these 2 people drive, this guy who is earning $2,000 per month may be driving an old, let's say, a Toyota Land Cruiser. Okay, it's a very reliable car, and he can't even afford to buy a Ferrari and all these cars that you see on the streets. But the guy who's earning $10,000 or $100,000 per month can be able to afford, let's say, a Ferrari, Lamborghini, and all these cars because of the money that's coming in, or the money that he's earning. Now let's take a look and see what majority of the wealthy people, or the wealthiest people, what cars do they drive? Okay, I'm talking about real wealth here. So according to this post by Dave Ramsey, if you don't know Dave Ramsey, he's this guy that talks a lot about finance and wealth and so on. The second on the list is a Honda. The third is a Ford, and then Lexus. Now, do you see these cars here that they are all reliable cars? If you want a seriously reliable car, you want to be driving a Toyota, Honda, Isuzu. These are the sort of cars that are super reliable, Japanese cars, basically. So how is it that we get people, even here in Zimbabwe, driving expensive cars, yet the wealthy are driving these basic cars here? Well, we're going to uncover that in a moment. Okay, so let's carry on here. So really, the people that can drive all these expensive cars are people that are earning a lot of money super fast, like sportsmen, musicians, actors, and so on. I cannot talk about Zimbabwe because there are people who drive these cars, but I don't know how they earn their money, so I can't speak on that, okay? So let's talk about wealth. What is wealth? What makes someone wealthy? Like if you look at someone and say, okay, this person is wealthy, he's doing well, he's wealthy. Well, most people think of wealth as in money in the bank, your bank balance. But that is not the correct way of looking at it. But of course, I can understand if that's the way how you look at things, like, yeah, okay, I've got 500,000 in my bank account, so therefore I'm wealthy. But that's not the measure of wealth at all. In fact, did you know that if you wanted to gift your son or your daughter, let's say 30,000, that money is also taxed? Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Anyway, so wealth is measured in, if this is the measure of wealth, then very, very few people are actually wealthy. Very, very few, because this definition is talking about physical and intangible assets owned. These are things that you own, you're fully paid for. and then you minus all the debt. So if someone has, let's say, a mortgage of 250,000, a car on finance for 20,000, loans 20,000, credit cards and so on, then technically this person here, his net worth is in the negative. So we are talking about minus 290,000. So this person does not fit in the category of the wealthy people, because what he owes here is money with these companies. The mortgage obviously is the bank, the car is the car finance company, and the debt obviously is the banks. So you actually owe money. So I know this gets very tricky and actually quite depressing, because if you really think about it, what you have to your name is a bunch of debt. If something was to happen to someone who is in minus 290,000, basically the house, the car has to go because it's owned by the company that leases the car or sells the car. Credit cards, well, you have to make a plan to pay for them. So it's very, very tricky. Now, in marketing, I mean, I'm a marketer myself. In marketing, they use crazy words like you're a homeowner, giving you the illusion that you're actually owning that house. But the reality is the house is owned by the bank. So basically what you are doing here is you are paying money to the bank and the house becomes yours when it's fully paid. So at this stage here, let's say you've completely paid the 250,000. That's where you get your check mark and pretty much you've paid for your house, which is really, really good. So why is this all confusing? I mean, where am I coming with this? So if you really look at our understanding of finance or money or wealth, it's a bit tricky because we are not taught about money, because our education system and what we adopted from our colonizers was a system where we are workers. That is why you find even in politics, when people are campaigning, they talk about jobs, jobs, jobs. Even here in Zimbabwe, jobs, jobs, you want jobs, people protest because that's what we were brainwashed, or that's the system that we grew up with. So if you look at the education system here, we are geared towards getting high grades. So if you're the guy with the high grades, well, you are the person that's really seen as someone who is on a path to success. So the idea here is you get high grades, you get a very good job, you work your way up to become a manager, supervisor, CEO. That's the top part, the CEO. And then pretty much you retire, you get your pension, and you're good to go. That's the path. Now, what makes it even more crazy is when we grew up, especially I'm in my mid-40s, we grew up listening to a lot of music and a lot of TV. So our idea of how the world works or how money works is based on what we saw on TV. So I remember a time where you get Tupac, they're singing and saying, I'm a self-made millionaire, blah, blah, blah. But now, when I look back, that was nonsense, because where are all the assets for us to calculate the net worth? Why is it we get information about, all these other people who have money, but these singers, they end up broke? I mean, how many singers right now back then who appeared so rich, but now pretty much they're, not heard of? So there's a lot, but they were selling a lifestyle which was an amazing lifestyle, but actually this was marketing. These are people who are singing about fake money. They are talking about, things that intoxicate you, violence, prostitution. These are the sort of things that are being pushed to the masses. And this is where we draw inspiration from. So you can see how dangerous this is. So our fashion, our behavior, the way we think about money is coming from these people, because our parents, majority of us, were not very wealthy. They had very, very good jobs. So they had good jobs at a time where they can buy a house, they can take you to private school and so on. But they were not like really good examples of someone who's building wealth. Now, I'm not saying this to really put down our parents, but a lot of people that bought houses and so on, they had very, very good jobs. That's how they built themselves up. So there was no inspiration for us to take from. So all we knew was a system where we go to school, get high grades, and aspire to be managers and CEOs. And so if you take a look here, these two systems are the recipe for disaster in terms of understanding how money works. Because the education system, there's nothing there that teaches you about money. From what we're watching on TV, there's nothing. So now we're left with a situation where we're looking at fashion. People are buying all these Gucci and Louis Vuittons, Chanel to appear like those singers, because this is the people we look up to, right? But these people are not really the examples of people who are actually wealthy. This is where you can tell that these people are from this bracket. The inspiration is coming from what we see on social media and also the media. Okay, so let's move on and let's talk about financial literacy. So basically here, I'm sure you can agree with me that very few people here have zero financial literacy. Now let's go deep into this. So a lot of people now who grew up, in our era or any era for that matter, they are aspiring to be in the middle class. And the middle class is where you get the spenders, okay? Majority of people in the society, in the capitalist society, are spenders. They spend like crazy. And you can find, it's not, rare to find someone with 20 pairs of shoes, or they're going on crazy holidays and they have cars on finance and cars on loans and so on and so forth, the credit cards. These are the middle class. And this is where everyone is aspiring to be, because we don't have more knowledge than, or basically our financial literacy is equal to zero, okay? The wealthy people, they invest. They're not spenders. Okay, they do spend, but for the most part, they are investors. They make money work for them, or they go into, or they buy things that produce money. Okay, so you can see here, there's a mindset shift. Middle class, spenders. The wealthy, they're investors. Okay, so moving on, we can go as high as saying 99% of people who are aspiring to be in the middle class. 99%, I would say. Don't quote me on that. But majority of people, they are spenders. Whereas over here, like I said, it's the 1%. That's why most of the times you hear that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So this is where we're going with this. So the spenders here, you'll find that, let's say they get a bit of money, they'll borrow to drive a very, very nice car. Whereas over here, the investor will go and buy a machine from China for the same amount of money that he knows that in 3-4 years' time is going to produce enough money to then buy the car that he wants. But the mentality here is totally different. And in fact, there's a book that I've been reading called The Millionaire Next Door. This book was an eye-opener for me. And of course, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Because with the rich people or the wealthy people, they put in their money into schemes or projects or things that make them more money. So that's why money, keeps pumping out of what they've invested in. So it's very, very interesting. I would highly recommend that book. So let's talk about debt. Most of these people in the middle class, they will try to convince you that there is good debt. I'm sure you've heard of this word, good debt. But let's take a look and dissect what good debt is. So good debt here is debt that is usually planned for a clear purpose for investment. Now, let me give you an example. Like with me, I'm into farming. Let's say I'm producing 100 chickens every week, and we are manually plucking the furthest out after we've slaughtered our chickens. And now my demand is even higher, okay, for my chickens. I want to increase my productivity to 200 chickens per week. So what I would then do, if I don't have money there and then, is to go and buy these chicken pluckers. Okay, I can go and borrow, let's say 3,000 to increase my productivity. So instead of manually plucking out these feathers with a team of people, now I have a machine that is plucking out the feathers in a very short space of time. And this is the example of good debt, because you're borrowing this money for a specific clear purpose, and this money can be paid back easily by the profits I'm going to make from my increased productivity. So that's a quick example that I can give you about good debt. But is this how majority of people are talking about good debt? Because every time you want to talk about, hey, a mortgage is bad or credit cards are bad, they say, oh, but there is good debt. So very good example here is a house. Is a house good debt? Now, I know this is a very tricky one to discuss because it's very easy to get confused whether buying a house on mortgage is good debt. So the way I look at it is, if you're buying houses for the purpose of renting, then it's good debt because you have a clear purpose. These houses are making money for you because what you can simply do is the rent that is being paid can go straight to paying off the house. So in 30 years time, maybe you have 3-4 houses. They are paid off by the people, by the tenants. So the rent is actually paying off the mortgage. So this is what makes it good debt. But this is not what a majority of people are saying when they talk about good debt. They're talking about, well, I've bought this house, in 30 years time, it's going to be mine and it's going to be worth X amount. But it becomes a house which you're just sitting on. It's not making you money. A liability is something that takes out money, okay? So that's not a very good example of good debt. Now, here, good debt, really? If you, let's say the cash price of this house is 100,000 for 30 years and pray that nothing bad happens. Your health is intact, you don't lose your job, and nothing crazy happens. You just have to pray nothing happens, because at the end of the house is not really yours. Because when we take a look at rent versus mortgage, right, it may look like the guys who are renting are, stupid, or they're not thinking straight. The guys on the mortgage side of things, they are the ones who are doing well. I know some people with 2 mortgages. Can you imagine? It's crazy. So like I said, you just have to pray that nothing crazy happens. Your health is intact for the next 30 years or maybe 15 years, because most of the people that are my age now, they're probably halfway through their mortgage. But anyway, when it comes to mortgages, the real owner of the house is the bank, and you, the person with the mortgage, is a tenant, but it's packaged in a very nice, creative way. Homeowner, it's your house, you can do modifications, blah, blah, blah. But if you want to know the real owner of that house, skip your mortgage payments for 3 months or 4 months. Then we can see who the real owner is. So don't feel pressured if you're someone who does not have a mortgage, because really these are technicalities. We're playing around with words. Okay. Anyway, so let's move on here. When you've purchased the house, did you know that there's also inheritance tax here, which is 40%, and the threshold here is 325,000. So if your house is worth more than 325,000, and let's say you pass on, the house needs to go to your children, the government actually takes 40% of that. And this is very, very crazy. This is why a lot of people prefer to buy properties from other countries where this is a bit more relaxed. Anyway, so moving on, let's continue this topic on good debt. So oftentimes you get people who say, well, I want to use the bank's money or using other people's money. But what you don't realize, and if you don't pay attention, these people oftentimes are comparing themselves with how the super wealthy actually use their money or how they spend their money. Let's take, for example, this guy. Very good salary. Maybe he earns 220,000 a year. Okay. Top guy, earns a lot of money. This guy will justify the house is going to be mine in the future. Well, if you look at Elon Musk, he's not on a salary here. He has shares. Okay. In his business, which is making him worth 220 billion. So this guy, even look at his personal loans. This is a figure that I got on the internet, by the way. His personal loans are up to 3.5 billion, but he's worth 220 billion. So you can see that this 3.5 billion is only a fraction. This guy with 3.5 billion can get a house, a yacht, so many cars and crazy things like that, right? So for the guy on the salary to say he's doing what Elon Musk is doing, we are actually working and talking on different playing fields here, because this guy, he's got shares. You are borrowing against your salary. So this is totally different. So you can't compare this idea of good debt when it comes to how the super rich do it. And you're saying, oh, I want to do what the super rich are doing. It's totally different, because one, the guy is borrowing on his salary, and the rich people, they are borrowing from their shares in their businesses that they've started. So it's totally different. Now, the other thing as well is, I should have an image here of Elon Musk, but I don't know why it's not showing. The guy on the salary, when he borrows money, he's borrowing the money at a higher interest rate, whereas Elon Musk can go in and negotiate for a lower interest rate. So you're never, ever on the same playing fields. We are totally different. So this is why it's very important that you find ways of learning about finance, about money, because if you're misguided now, you're going to be struggling in the future, because this is where you find, and I find this very, very frustrating. You don't take care of your wealth. This is why we have a culture where if you're a daughter, your daughter wants to get married, you start charging all this bride price like crazy. you find you're charging, 50 cows, 20 cows, which are worth thousands. How do you expect a guy who's just marrying your daughter to have all that kind of money? So basically what most people do now, they're trying to compensate for all their failures in how to plan for their finances. Because really, if you have your own monies, what you need for your bride money is a token of appreciation. But we turn it into, I need a car, I need a mobile phone, I need this, I need that, all these demands, which in the end, the guy who's marrying your daughter is going to take him 20 years, 15 years to pay off all these monies that are being asked for when it comes to the bride price. So it is very important that you go in and learn how money works. Now, I do this experiment every now and again. You ask an average guy, an average Zimbabwean, if I give you $50,000 right now, what would you do with it? 8 out of 10, they say, I'll buy a stand and then buy a car. Now, remember, I had a slide which spoke about how and what we've learned about money. That's the mentality. Can you imagine? You get 50,000, you go and buy a stand and you go and buy a car. Basically, you're back to square one. You got no money to develop that stand. And that money has become, that car has become a liability. Now you need to make sure you service it. If things go wrong, you need to get it fixed. But in the meantime, you haven't improved yourself. So the way we think about money is totally wrong. And these are the sort of things that really helped me change my mind when it came to money. I had to learn how money works in order for me to feel like I'm progressing in life. Okay, so as you can see, these two things here can be very detrimental because you're going to have a piece of land which you can't develop because you've blown the 50,000. So ideally what you need to do, and this is how you're supposed to be thinking about money. When you have, let's say, 50,000, you want to put it in a business project. I know business can be risky, but so also can be the mortgages. Because what if you lose your job? So both of them are risky. So don't feel like, oh, I can't go into business. The way you want to go into this business project is you want to make sure you do calculated risks and you put key people who are knowledgeable to run the business, because you cannot be someone who has worked all their life in, let's say, as a nurse or as an engineer, and now you want to come into the world of business and expect the business to work. No, there's so many things you need to learn about business for that to work. But anyway, this is the best way to actually go about this. You get your 50,000, you put it into a business project. The profits and the proceeds that you get from the stand is what you use to buy the what? The cars. So if we take a look at this now, this is how people get rich, actually, wealthy, super wealthy. There is no one out there. I may be wrong. So please comment in the comments box below. If you look at the top 100 wealthiest people in the world, all of them have businesses. You won't see any workers there. All of them have businesses. So it's very, very important that this model here is what makes the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Because this business project here, let's say it works out and it's super amazing and the profits keep coming. So that 50,000 that you've put into the business keeps on producing more and more and more money. This is how you get people who end up buying 3 houses, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars and more houses. And you know what? If they invest more back into the business, now the business is expanding. So your profits now are doubling. And if you innovate, you're making even more money. So do you see how powerful it is to put your money into a business project? And this is what people need to do. Go into a business project, manage it, learn more about it, and make it work. This is what's going to enable you to make more money, to buy houses, to buy cars, or whatever it is, fund your lifestyle. Majority of people want to do all this with debt, and that is very, very dangerous. Okay, so as I mentioned before, if you come from a career straight into a business project, chances are you're going to fail. This is why there's a very, very big failure rate when it comes to business loans to start the business. No business skills, no marketing skills, no sales skills. So that's the main thing. So what am I saying here? Well, what I'm saying is, if you want to be wealthy, people with a lot of money, they don't scream their wealth, because the real wealth is very silent to you, that they are worth a lot of money. There's no need. And besides, wealthy people know that if they go out there and talk about how wealthy they are, you're attracting thieves. You're attracting problems from the families. So you just live your life like a regular guy, and enjoy your monies. If you need to travel, go on holiday, you go on holiday, and you don't have to declare all your wealth. Maybe a few relatives can know 1 or 2 houses. And here's the other thing. Majority of wealthy people put their monies in trusts, okay, where the money is protected and where the houses, the businesses are protected by the trust. Because if you have everything out there in your names, if something goes wrong and you get sued, they come for your property easily because it's in your name. So all this is put in a trust, but that's a topic for another day. So what I'm saying here is, if you want to be wealthy, you want to be someone that is super focused on your goal in life of making sure that your lifestyle is not out there on the street where people see you wearing Gucci and all these crazy brands. No, you don't need to do that, because you know that you're comfortable. If you live your life for others now, you're under pressure to get the house, show that you have all these Louis Vuitton bags. You want to show that you have all these expensive things around you. You don't want to do that, because you're actually slowing yourself down, because these things are super expensive. And when it comes to debt, by the way, debt in another way, as I mentioned before, okay, you're borrowing X amount and now you're paying back, obviously, with interest. So this slows you back big time. You cannot really be competing when you have a lot of money that you're paying on top of what you've borrowed. So majority of people now, especially in the diaspora, as I mentioned, they are projecting a lifestyle which is fake, because they're showing you, look at my car that I've just bought. No, the car does not belong to you. It belongs to the bank. Oh, look at my car. Look at my house. It's an amazing house. I bought a house. No, you didn't buy that. You are actually paying installments for X amount of years. And when you finish paying for that house, that's where it becomes yours. It's not your house. And that's just the harsh reality. Now, you're probably thinking, well, where am I going with this? Why are you so harsh at people that have mortgages and people that have credit cards and people that are doing chimbad? Why am I harsh on them? I'm not being harsh. I am just basically talking about the reality of the situation before someone who's confused about money actually falls into the same trap. So all in all, of course, at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want with your money. Who am I to tell you what to do with your money? I'm just a guy on the internet. But this video was meant for educational purposes only. So at least you can see the other side, how I've decided to do things, which leads me to, okay, Mr. Mac, you have all this knowledge about money and everything. Are you rich? And I'm sure you're wondering if I'm rich. Well, I am not wealthy, because I believe that the knowledge I got it later on in life, and to build real wealth, it takes a very long time, even generations. So where I am now, I've been fighting to unbrainwash myself from the ideas that I grew up with, just like you, about money. So it's very tempting. Every now and again, you look at a very nice car and you say, I want that car. And then you think to yourself, well, no, I don't really want it. It's because I want people to look at me a certain way. So I'm not wealthy, but at the same time, I can say I'm comfortable, because there are a few things that I've fixed which make me live my day-to-day life in a very relaxed manner. What am I talking about? Well, a lot of the things that give us a headache in life are things to do with money, especially debt. When you start getting debt collectors or these letters coming through the doors, it's very depressing, especially when you don't have enough money to fix these debt problems. So what I've done is I got rid of debt. So I'm actually debt free. But when you see me walking around, you're not going to see someone who's splashing money. I've got Louis Vuitton, Chanel, and all. No, you know why? Because I can't afford it. If you really look at these bags, they cost $4,000. They cost $5,000. So why would I be spending $5,000 on a bag, or spending all these monies? Rather, my way of thinking now is, if I have $10,000 to spend, I will go and invest that money into something that makes me more money down the line. So you will not see me in fancy cars. Even if I have, let's say, $1 million today, I can safely say, I know maybe this may change, but if I have $1 million today, I will not buy a brand new car. Definitely not. I will put all that money into projects that I know my future generations are going to be set for life, and I would love them to be able to uphold what I've built for them, provide employment. because to me, that is giving back to society. That's how I look at things. It can't be just about me. No, that's just how I think. I don't know. Maybe I don't have the $1 million yet. Maybe that's why I'm speaking the way I am. But at least that's how I look at things. So yes, I'm not wealthy, but I'm comfortable. I'm okay. I'm not stressed about money a lot. Anything that I want to do right now in life, slowly, I just try and build it with the money that I'm earning. I stay away from mortgages. If I can, I save the money, buy whatever I need to buy, and focus on things that make me more money. That's where I'm at. Anyway, I know this has been a very, very long video, and some of you may feel offended by what I've said. That was not my intention. So please forgive me in advance. This topic of money and politics, these two topics are very difficult to talk about because they are very, very emotional. So this was not me targeting people in the diaspora, put them down and say they are bad people, or sometimes these topics need to be addressed. And the reason why I made this video was because someone in the comments box really asked me about making these type of videos. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments box below. I welcome a very good discussion about money, wealth. I may learn actually a thing or two from some of you. So this is an open discussion. This is not me just barking at you what you need to do. No, this is my view. This is my opinion. So let me hear your opinions in the video description below. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.